How's it going, everyone? I am Rob. This is Order 42, and today's going to be another fun interview. Almost a part two to what I did a couple of weeks ago with my friend Leon, who's a special effects genius from England, and he's done all kinds of things. I mean, we talked about it on the last show. So if you hadn't watched that, stay tuned, because I know that Twitch has a 14-day cutoff for the videos that it saves. But don't worry, I'm editing it down, and the YouTube's coming. So, Leon, how's it going, my friend?
Yeah, it's good to be back. I wouldn't say genius, but but yeah, I do special effects. Yeah.
What's the normal process for you setting up a shot? Because we kind of covered that with what you did on Game Chasers, but like on a regular movie, what's your process, or who decides that kind of stuff? How does it all come about from your perspective then?
Well, I mean, it's pretty much the SFX supervisor that will get the requirements for the day. I mean, they'll be the one that tells everybody else that they're in charge of about what they're doing. Because when I'm on something, I mean, obviously on the Game Chasers, it was mainly just myself doing the effects. But when I'm on something else, I've got a boss, and there's usually, I don't know, a number of technicians, or it will just be a couple of us. It can all change. But basically, the SFX supervisor will be in charge, and they'll decide what needs to be brought down. But it's always kind of subject to change. It's like all of a sudden a director can be like, "Oh, actually, I'd love an explosion over here," and it's not on the sheet at all. But you've got to be prepared, so you've got to be ready. So we'll have equipment, whether it's, I don't know, wind machines or rain rigs, smoke machines, flame bars, and pyro, that kind of stuff. But we'll set it all up. We'll bring everything in that has to be ready, because you definitely don't want camera or directors or actors waiting for you, that sort of stuff. But yeah, we've always tested everything, and we know it all works. It looks right. But sometimes the elements can play havoc with your plans, especially if you're shooting on location. Like natural wind blowing smoke away, which I have been bollocked for before. It's like, where's all the smoke gone? It's like, I don't control the wind. Like, I mean, I control this wind machine, but I don't control the wind. And I think I told you before about when we were on Throne season 4. It was my first day there, and I think there were about 10 of us. Like, we turned up, and it's like, oh, we don't need to do any haze or any smoke in the background, because it's kind of all natural. So we left it, and I think it wasn't until 6 hours in, maybe, that the DOP was like, yeah, can we turn the smoke down? It's like, that's not actually us. so it's like, oh, okay, then never mind. It's like, yeah, so we kind of got away without doing anything for about 6 hours. I mean, we were still messing around and setting up other bits and pieces, but it was nice not to be having to be full on at that period. But yeah, it's all sorts of things. It's always elements. I mean, actual rain is a pain, as we're going to find out. But yeah, like, if it rains and they definitely need to shoot on a day that isn't scheduled for rain, you then have to match that if they need to go back and get any pickups or anything on a day that when it doesn't rain. So that can be quite difficult, because doing rain is absolutely fine, but when you're trying to match real rain, that's when it gets difficult, because you've got different ways that how you have your stand set up, or whether you're using monsoon spinners or like a rig up above or anything like that. It can look funny if they cross, if you see what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. It's like, because rain obviously doesn't do that. It goes pretty much in a singular direction, whereas you can really tell if it's fake rain if it starts crossing over on camera or stuff like that. And like, if someone hasn't backlit the rain, you can hardly see it, which obviously with natural light it's a bit difficult to match that up as well. So, but that comes down to the gaffer department, I guess. So it's like the old Sparkies.
Now, see,
But
I guess that's what. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
no, I was
Um,
done.
okay, there's something in there that I guess I had. I guess I was curious about, and you may not be able to answer this, but it's one of those things where, like, I know that there's got to be some times when you're like, you know, let's say I guess the special effects supervisor,
Mhm.
maybe he has the list of the big shots, the big things that you have to plan. Like,
Yeah.
how long does that? I mean, does sometimes is that going on? Like, maybe there's a day where you're like, okay, well, it's all internal stuff. So we've got one guy doing haze. I'm guessing here,
Uh-huh. Yeah,
and
no,
then
no, no.
the rest of the team is over here working on this effect that's going to come up later in the shoot. Is that how that kind of goes
Yeah,
down, or?
yeah, that would happen. You'd have someone on set just to do minimal atmos to put into the set. Usually, if you're in studio or stuff like that, and everybody else could be outside setting up a massive flame rig, or I don't know, could be anything.
Mm.
But there's no point everyone sat around doing nothing if there's stuff to prep. So it's like I mean that there has been points where we gone offline.
No, it's me.
Oh
It's
right, okay.
I'm just fixing me.
No worries. Yeah, so it just I completely forgot where I was going with that, to be honest.
No, just the like the different teams are kind of working on.
Yeah, so they'll go away and work on other bits, because we should always have stuff to do. It's rare that you will have days when there is literally nothing to do, unless it's a non-effects heavy show. Where I've been on a few where it will just be I know myself and one other,
Mm.
and we will do um, the like the interior smoke or a practical fire in the fireplace or something, and then it won't be until a couple of weeks later that all of a sudden, oh, we've got a big rain gig or we've got a big fire or anything, and then you'd get in. I know another 2 or 3 technicians, senior technicians, that sort of thing, and then they'd help as well. But you'd also have a prep team in the background on bigger stuff. You have a prep like a workshop crew, which would be building stuff, a prep crew who would be setting it up on location or in a stage. So, like, say you've got to do steam or you've got wind in there, so they'd bring around compressors and stuff like that and rig it all up so it's in the set pretty much in the position that you want it to be, ideally. Of course, then Sparks will come in and completely mess us around as they always do. Love
Hmm.
the Sparks, but they'll yeah, you've got to be prepared to move around basically. So it's like unless it's obviously something like a fire which is preset. But yeah, I mean even with fires, you'd have like a whole sort of rig going around where it'd come back to probably a manifold, and then you've got your gas bottles, which you obviously got to make them all on, and then you'd have each one numbered up to what it is. You'd always set levels before, so you can literally just turn it on with the pilot in there, and it will be at the level that it was set at for the shot and that
Hmm.
sort of thing, and then you can adjust it. But basically, what I was going to do with the fireplace I was talking about, obviously
Hmm.
that's been in the trailer, so that's fine. But that sort of thing when we were outside is what I was planning to do. Had we the budget? So
Hmm. There was some questions that we had that were kind of um, like what's the best effects, for the least budget and things like that.
mm,
I don't want to put you on the spot like that because that could be like that could be one of those things that could be kind of a touchy subject. But like, there's got to be movies that you've seen that you go, man, that was really just insane. That was really cool that what they did there. I mean, do you have anything in mind like that?
oh, there's loads. They're pretty much all in the 80s and early 90s.
Yeah.
It's basically when practical effects were kind of at their peak. Really, it was like it was just the ingenuity of the proper effects people. I mean, I obviously effects has turned into a different animal these days. You've got of Whereas back in the
Whereas back in the
day,
day,
the umbrella would have been like effects for makeup, and it would still be us. Whereas now we do like blood stuff, and like bullet hits with blood in and stuff like that. That's us. But like actual special effects makeup, that's not us. That's a completely separate department. And the same with like model making or your animatronics and stuff like that. I mean, we will to an extent, but it's generally older people that are into it because it's not used as much these days. I mean, it's had a bit of a resurgence,
Mm-hmm.
though I'm not sure how that's going to play in upcoming productions, but we'll see how it all goes. But yeah, you've got so many films that I could even think. I mean, Who Framed Roger Rabbit? I mean that's a perfect blend of like your visual effects with your physical effects, and that's late 80s. The same with Back to the Future. Obviously, you're going into the Terminator franchise, and it's you've got so many good effects that if you really delve into it, and you are interested to see how things like that are done, it is so clever. I mean, you go back to masters like Stan Winston and Rick Baker, with his transformations for American Werewolf and stuff like that. They are just like a special effects show reel.
Right.
And it's only when it started to come into the, I don't know, the mid 90s or stuff like that CG really started to get a hold. And people are obviously worried, and I mean, both industries are here to this day. I mean, we both work in tandem, but it seems like you'd get big effects back in the day. Would be you'd have to do it all big or go home. Whereas now you can do it smaller, and you can accentuate it with VFX. So whereas you would have an explosion, they can digitally make it look bigger. If you've got a builder like watch the behind the scenes for The Dark Knight when the hospital gets blown up.
Mm. Yes.
A couple of the floors don't even exist, and some extra windows get blown up and stuff like that. And it's all just some really clever CG in there. And yeah, it's just a great example of of the two working together. But yeah, the old movies are the best. I love going back to the 80s. Gremlins, Ghostbusters.
Oh yeah.
Proper effects.
Now, does that? I guess that brings a different question here. When you're doing like let's say, I'm trying to think of an example. I would think Thrones, to a certain extent, would have a lot of the kind of I guess like, I don't know, like makeup effects, and then you've got some. I don't know. Was there a lot of animatronics in Game of Thrones? But was that something that you worked with? Is basically what I'm saying. Did you work in tandem with those folks, or?
No. You know what? I mean, as I've told you before, I was only on season 4 and season 8 of Thrones.
Right.
But animatronics, I can't really think of anything where I can think of some sort of rig like that, other than some rigs which I won't go into because industry,
Sure.
I'll get in trouble. Yeah, so can't delve into that. But no, it's that was mainly just physical atmospheric effects. Obviously, you've got your makeup teams that come in and do like, I don't know, the Night King makeup and stuff like that, as well as other makeup. But it really didn't delve into anything else. When I did Dark Shadows, there was a model unit on that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like spoilers for anybody who hasn't seen this 10-year-old film. But yeah, when we blew up the cannery, we blew it up for real. I know because I was underneath it. Yeah, and so that was done, and that was cool. But the house that was, it's been so long since I've seen the film. But the house later on in the film, is actually a model. I mean, it's a very big model, but it's I don't know. I don't know what scale it would be, but it was still a house that was about 20 foot high, but it was meant to be like about 80. That
Right.
sort of thing. So it's like because it's sort of an almost dilapidated mansion sort of thing or manor house. But yeah, that was all a model unit doing that. But to the extent of the old ways, like using stop motion, or I mean, Joe showed us that claymation still works to this day. I don't know if you saw the new GameSack episode. I highly approved of it. It's like bringing the old claymation back. Well, stop motion claymation. But yeah, that sort of stuff is very niche these days. You see some ingenuity with like papercraft and stuff like that, but that's more borderline CG now. I would think. What was it, Kubo and the Two Strings? That was
Oh
apparently
yeah,
done in paper or pepakura or something like that, or origami, but I'm sure it must have been accentuated with visual effects. It kind of had to be, I
for
think.
sure. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean on Thrones, I can't think of anything that I can really think specific where we used animatronics. I mean, obviously we had explosion stuff or the irregular fire stuff. I remember when we set someone's arm on fire. They had a fake like thing over their arm, but we also put like the stunt gel on it, so it's like a kind of retardant gel, which will keep you safe for a number of seconds, like almost like a barrier, and then you just put it out.
Hmm.
But other than that, without delving into proper giving away secrets, yeah, it was more just general fire, smoke, wind, rain.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, did you ever think that, or did you ever consider maybe getting into, more of that, the model building side or anything like that? Were you ever interested in that?
I was interested. I mean, I think I told you before that I went next door to that model unit where the guy had the models for like Moon and Battlefield Earth and all that sort of stuff, and it was cool to see. But it's definitely an industry which is waning. It's if it gets a resurgence, I'd love to look into it. However, you've got to be very, very creative to be a model maker.
Yeah.
But oh, actually, that's just no. That has reminded me. We did have a guy who did do some model making for Annihilation. I can't remember what for because I've never seen the film. But when he was doing it, he definitely did some model builds and stuff like that. So I guess it's still prevalent. And you've got the engineering sort of side, whereas you would maybe have a model back in the past to show how you would like something. These days, you build it in AutoCAD or something like that, and then it would be you'd be able to get it engineered down to the millimeter of how you can build it.
Hmm.
So it's all computers helping us these days, that sort of thing. So
Now, okay, you got me thinking about something while you said
okay.
that. So you may not be able to answer this question, but it's something that I think is curious about. Kind of, you may want to slap me next time you see me for asking or for saying this, but this is one of those situations where I think about the state of the industry, right?
Mm.
And that the studios in a lot of ways haven't been able to bring in any money. That big theater, the box office, the theater box office, traditional theater exhibition is where they make most of their money on a movie.
Sure, because it gets rented out to the cinema, and then
Right.
you are just literally paying to go watch that film. God knows how many times.
Right. So this is my thinking. If they've been unable to make that money for so long that I mean, everybody's in a bind right now. I mean, it's affecting everybody from, a production assistant that can't work right now to a studio that was counting or projecting so much money that this movie was going to make, and they hadn't been able to release it in a theater. So my thinking is, do you think that they might move to a more effect heavy or model make? Now here's the question: just because it's like a physical model doesn't mean it's actually cheaper than doing the visual effect, right?
Uh Material wise, probably not. But then you've got to think about man hours.
Mm,
Whereas to build something, is it cheaper to do it for real? And are there benefits of that? Or is it cheaper to? I mean, say for instance, you built a plane or a big carrier or something like that, and then you're having it on set when you're on location in Spain, and then all of a sudden, oh, we've got to go to the States.
right.
Do you transport that vehicle?
Mm,
How much is that going to cost to transfer it over? Or do you build another one like they did with the Batmobile on the Dark Knight? I think they had like 6 of them. Or do you, I know, do it half CG and half physical? It definitely will come down to which is the most cost effective. But overall, if it's a big budget production, you're really going to look to the director, who has pretty much the overall say, or he'll have his words with production about, no, he definitely needs this. And it's
right.
like, it's got to be like that, or he's not having it. That's that sort of thing. Which can happen. I mean, not all directors are like that, but some are.
Sorry, planes flying
That's
over.
all right. That's all right. Yeah, some know what they want, and yeah, and they won't stop till they get it. So they're just trying to make their movie.
Well, I don't know. I'm really kind of curious. Sorry, we've got
That's all right.
tons of air traffic today. I don't know why. Bunch of jets out flying around and playing around. I don't know what they're
They're
doing.
all, they're all going on holiday.
Ah, well,
Sorry, vacation.
they keep flying over the house, so they're going in circles, whatever they're doing. But anyway, no, it's like you look at the way that the Mandalorian has been shot, and the way
With
that
the rear projection.
well, yeah, but that kind of that what is like a big arc, and it's a big screen, and then they've got the thing on top that's kind of
Rear projection.
right. But then you've got they even made it a point to say that we want to make models. We want it to look. We want to try to take what we learned from watching all of those special features of Star Wars from the 70s, all that, the motion tracking and all that kind of stuff with the models. We want to be able to do that now with today's technology, but use those same concepts, but bring it into this day and age. I find that like, and you gotta. I have no idea how much that stuff costs, but you gotta think that stuff would have been cheaper to do it, visual effects, right?
Yeah. It's a tricky one to answer, but purely because I've not worked with rear projection myself,
Yeah.
as yet, so I don't know the ins and outs of it, or how complicated it is to film like that. But you've just got stuff that could it be done better with, like it was back in the day. I mean, you've got all this nostalgia that's sort of coming in for filmmaking these days, and it's like, we wanted to look like it did back in the 80s,
Yeah.
and it's like, you can, but it will probably look a lot different, purely because it's not the 80s anymore. It's hard to replicate that, and a, not a quick fix, but like, visual effects can solve that. I mean, a lot of these old techniques haven't been used for a number of years. So whilst you want to capture all the puppetry and stuff like that, I mean, yeah, you can go dig in Jim Henson's like warehouse and dig them all out. But I imagine a lot of the old costumes and stuff like that, they're not going to look exactly the same. A lot of the puppets
Yeah.
aren't going to look the same, because they either don't exist anymore, or it's rose tinted glasses a lot of the time.
Right.
So it could be good. I mean, I welcome more practical effects coming back in, and people grasping that physical effects are something which people want to see, and I'm happy that you can go in tandem with VFX, and when you can get it seamless, it's just brilliant.
Yeah,
And I really enjoy something when it's when it goes hand in hand. You know, I've got no problem with visual effects at all.
yeah, and that's one of those things where I wonder if that's like I wonder if I mean I know you can't speak to some of the I guess the old dogs still in the game, but I
I
mean
have,
but I mean
I've spoke to many of them.
but I mean I wonder if that's how they feel. Like have they come around to saying, you know what, visual effects is just another tool that we can use to make that scene work, or because I know that you know this as well as anybody. Some of those movies in the like you said in the mid '90s, it was almost like they said, "This scene's going to be all CG, and we're just going to do it all CG," and they depended on that as like a crutch, like almost like they use it almost like a character before they were even able to really grab. It's like it's like Jeff Goldblum says, right, in Jurassic Park. Just because you can doesn't mean you should, kind of thing.
Well, but you're quoting Jurassic Park, but the CG was used in Jurassic Park was fantastic. So it's
right. But then that's what I'm saying is that some of those movies in the mid '90s to late '90s, even early 2000s, gosh, it happens all the time, where you see that when effects are used as a crutch instead of just another tool to help tell the story, like effects for effects' sake doesn't work.
Yeah.
You know?
If it's not seamless, then there's no point. You don't want the effects to tell the story. You want the story to tell the story, and you just want the effects to accentuate what's going on in the shot. Really, you don't want to be able to like look at something and go, oh, that's done like this. You want to be puzzled. I mean, even when I see something and I don't know how it's done, I generally get a little bit excited still. I was like, oh, I wonder how they did that. That sort of thing. It's like, which, not every man or woman will be like looking for things like that. Like I'll watch a film and I'll see a load of smoke coming in the background, and it looks like someone's just set a machine on fire because it's done badly. But I mean that can happen on the bigger shows, and
Right.
I've been guilty of it myself, where I'll be like stood there, and then all of a sudden it a load of smokes around me. It's like, oh yeah, I've got to move around, that sort of thing. It's like I don't know how much more to really go into it other than just it's just how the effects are these days.
And that's, I guess, one of the things that I was trying to come up with an example in my head of, like, to me, where effects are used as a tool to tell a story is like John Wick. John Wick takes, effects and, visual effects and practical effects to a level where it helps to tell the story. But then you've got a movie like, and that's actually a bad example. Because
sorry, I've got a great example.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Of one, Mortal Kombat.
Oh, yeah.
With the CG of Reptile, which was terrible, but then you had the guy in the suit of Goro, which for ages I was looking and I was wondering, is it animatronic? Which it's partly animatronic, but it's also but it's a man in a suit as well. So it's like it's a man in a suit, but he there's also operating for the other arms and the eyes and everything, because obviously he's under here, and it really is good. Obviously you can tell that it's not real, but it still looks good and it works, and you can believe it. But it's only when you see Reptile that obviously this is 3-4 years after Terminator 2.
Yeah.
and like 5 years after Jurassic, no, 2 years after Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
So
it did not look good.
Yeah, obviously at that point, visual effects were costing a lot of money.
You just made me think of one of the movies that blew my mind. Like when you're talking about it and you go, okay, I don't know how they did that. Of course, I know how they did it now, but it was the scene in Jurassic Park 2, right? The Lost World.
Mm-hmm.
And they're chasing after all the dinosaurs. And then there's a part where a guy kind of lassos one.
Mm,
and the thing rears up, and the guy gets picked up, right? And all it is
mm.
a big green. It's probably a big green foam stick, and they just kind of, they just keyed that out and put the CG dinosaur in there. But at the time, I'm thinking, okay, I don't understand how that was done. And that was one of those things that was at 90, 96, 90, I don't know.
Well, Jurassic Park 1 was 93, wasn't it? So
Yeah,
it would have been 94, 95 because I think they tried to churn out the sequel pretty quick.
yeah,
But I honestly don't know. Obviously, I see him with the green background, and it's not a green stick. It's that they use like the sparkly ball. It's like a mirror ball,
mm,
which I don't know. I think it captures light or something like that, and then they turn it around and they've got like a color chart on there and stuff like that. So,
right.
I mean that's how I see it done these days. But back then, it could well have been just trying to track off of a stick or something.
Yeah, it could
But
have been like hand, back then. I mean, that was,
well, yeah, I'm not an expert on it, so I don't know when compositing came in, whether
yeah,
it was rotoscoping is a new thing or whether it's a really old thing. I mean, that's frame by frame, so I assume rotoscoping is going back to pretty much how hand drawn animation used to be for old cartoons and stuff like that.
yeah.
That's got to be rotoscoping in some form. So I imagine it's always been there to an extent, but I wouldn't know how they did it. I'd guess it was a snatch rig,
Mm,
just to like hide away what he's got, and it'd be stuntmen that would pull him out,
right.
and then yeah, that they'd either overlay the dinosaur in there. To be honest, I thought you were going to ask how they got the dinosaur to San Diego, which I was going to have to tell you that the film's not real. But
Well, I'm pretty dense, but I don't know if I'm that dense. But there was something else. Oh, it was recently Terminator 2 went on sale, and I purchased it in 4K, and man, 4K really brings out, all the rear projection stuff they did, like especially in that first sequence where it's all like in the future.
mm,
And there's a lot of course, Aliens did this too. There's a bunch of that rear projection stuff, like when the it's like a dropship. I guess it's a dropship when it's
yeah,
crashing and it's kind of spinning toward the camera, and I think it's Hicks is like running toward the camera, but you can tell he's basically dancing in front of a TV screen or
yeah,
rear
I do
projection.
remember that looking pretty bad, and all the electricity back then as well
Yeah,
wasn't ideal with the electrical interference and stuff like that. But as soon as you see that APC, it's like, oh, that looks great.
I love
It's
that.
coming
That
down
is
to your physical effects again.
Yeah, that is one of my favorite movies for many reasons. But I mean, just the direction of that movie. There's like the number of pickup shots they would have had to do. Because if you look at any action sequence, there's so many cuts. But like I guess what do you call that? It's like it's almost like structuring a sentence in a
Yeah.
way, at least the way I look at it. And so it has to flow from one scene to the next. But there's a part where the alien is trying to get into the APC and they're trying to get out of the nest. And there's so many shots. There's a shot of him of I don't know if it's Hicks or Hudson that picks up the gun. I can't remember. I think it's Hicks. I could be wrong. Anyway, you see the gun sitting on the ground. You see a hand come down to pick it up. Then there's a shot from this point of view of him putting it in the mouth. Then there's a shot from over the alien's head looking towards as he's like pulling the trigger. And it's just it's just like bam, bam, bam. There's all these shots, and it's amazing that it makes sense and that you know what's going on.
I will let you in on a little secret. It will be a second unit doing a lot of that stuff.
Right.
So whilst they could film it all on one day, 9 times out of 10 they won't. Or if they do, it'll be another team somewhere else. Because your main unit is usually just for your actors, for your key personnel and stuff like that. Everybody that's got to have their face in. But if it's an arm, I don't know, just a shot of landscape or establishing shots, anything like that, that will be a second unit. And a lot of action as well. It's usually referred to as action unit because your explosions and your big stuff like that usually does tend to fall on the second unit. And you can have even more. You can have 3 units. I've heard of some shows having 4 units, um, and you don't have one camera. You will have A camera, B camera, C camera. It could be loads of them. So there is a lot to get done, but it's sliced up and divided out enough that you can kind of get away with it. I've been on something before. You've just given me horrible flashbacks of I can't remember what I think it might have been Thrones, actually, maybe season 4, where I was doing smoke with the main unit, and then all of a sudden I had to run over and do stuff for the second unit as well, and then come running back and do stuff for the main unit, because the other unit, because I think we had like Dragon, Wolf, and Raven unit at one point, they would be away filming somewhere else, so you're really stretched, and it's just stuff you wouldn't normally expect. But yeah, it's there's lots of stuff that can go on in a shot where you would assume that everybody is really busy at that point, but it is always divided up. But there's always a schedule
Right.
to try and save money. Really, it's to try and make sure that we don't have reshoots. And if you're looking back to like Aliens and stuff like that's productions used to film for a lot longer, and you used to have a lot more prep time as well. We don't get as much these days. I don't know for what reason that is. I mean, we still make, yeah, well, we still make films. They still work. It's just sometimes that it does go in a different direction, and you do have a lot of reshoots or stuff like that, or a studio isn't happy with something, and then reshoots will come in. But I can't really speak too much on the older films because I wasn't on them. So
Yeah. Well, yeah. But I mean, it's like, to me, like when you're saying that, and I'm thinking about just the logistics, like from Rudy and Larissa when they were on the Game Chasers, they had everything down to a minute, they knew that, okay, by lunch, we've got to have this scene done, or
yeah.
we're not going to finish.
They were on it. They were on it. Yeah.
Yeah. Just think about just the logistics of trying to figure out what each unit's got to do on which day. I mean, I would not want to. I would not want to try to figure that out. It's just not something that my brain works for, And like, oh, go ahead.
I've been on stuff where, because the first assistant director, his job is to make sure that everything runs on schedule, and there's a very, very odd line, because you get shows like I've been on BBC stuff where overtime doesn't tend to happen because budget reasons and stuff like that. So you will have the AD call it. It'll be like, right, okay, we can't go over. You can't have that shot, and it will just be like, oh, okay, we're done. Whereas I've been on bigger stuff where it will be like, oh yeah, we need to hurry this up. So, no, I need this shot. And it's like, oh, okay. So whilst the first AD is trying to do his job, it's a fine balance, because you've also got the creatives of the DOP and the director who could spend a whole day on something and completely lose a whole day's filming just because they want this shot perfect. And that's why you'll usually get safety days. I mean, I spoke about it in the chat when you were speaking with Billy. Yeah. It's like you will get safety days. It's usually for stuff like weather or like things you wouldn't expect. I don't know, like we had bomb threats back when I was in Ireland. So we lost like a few hours there and that sort of thing. So it's insurance of the unforeseen, but you can also use that as possible reshoot days and stuff like that if needed, I guess. Go
ahead.
No, I was done.
Sorry, I feel like I'm still like I'm cutting you off, but it's like one of those things where I get that in a lot of ways, people, they kind of like to hear the bad days and the bad things that went on. I get that, but that's kind of what those safety days are for. Like for example, you hear back in the old days, who was it? Was it Peter O'Toole? I can't remember what actor it was, but I remember seeing an interview where they were like, yeah, he came to set drunk every day. And then he came back and he was on and he was amazing, but then the camera would shut off and he's just like, ugh. And I'm like, I'm wondering if that's one of those things where even like illness and things like that, like for example, like I think of Raiders of the Lost Ark, and you hear about how the day that he shot the scene with the guy in the market, and he's kind of got this and he just shoots the guy,
Yeah, yeah. He was ill.
Yeah, and that whole you hear about the horror stories of how bad that was, and like a lot of the crew got sick. So the casting crew were all sick and they weren't feeling great. Like, I mean, is that part of it too? I mean, I don't know if that's something that you even planned for.
Well, I mean, it all depends with your crew or at the time. It's like, do we go through with it? Do we change it? Do we write around it? I mean, they wrote around it. He was supposed to either have a sword fight or get his whip out or something like that, and he just brings his gun out and shoots him, and it's so much better. It's one of the funniest parts of the film, and it's completely unintentional.
Iconic.
It's fantastic, and it's just, I mean, it's obviously one of the good points of what could happen, and it could turn into gold.
Yeah.
But yeah, 9 times out of 10, it's gonna impact on your shooting rather than actually help it. So
I guess that's one of the lessons that we can take from something like that, and even through some of the stuff that we did on Game Chasers, was that some days you just got to roll with it and try to make the best out of a bad situation.
Oh, absolutely.
Before we get to the rest of my questions, I have to acknowledge my brother in chat. He actually asked a question for you, and it may be something that we've touched on, but what was your favorite effects project that you worked on?
Ooh. What, just effects in general, or like one particular effect?
Yeah, I mean, it could be any of that, because I'm kind of one of the questions that I came up with this week was one that's kind of like, how do you enjoy your work? But yeah, I mean, what do you, is there like, here's my thing, and you correct me if I'm wrong. Like, to me, there are days, like whole days that stick out, like, oh man, that was a good day. Or I really loved, it's just like, I can't go into too much detail, but
yeah, I know what you're gonna say. Yeah, exactly.
That day was awesome, and it was so much fun. Everybody was laughing. It was such a good day. So I mean, I remember stuff like that. So sometimes
not for me.
Yeah.
I was stressing out, but there's always always stuff that you sort of have a highlight of. But favorite effects stuff, it probably would come down something on Thrones. There was so much cool stuff that actually went on there. Obviously, being part of that world record stuntman burn, that's the 23 people. That's up there as a highlight. Obviously, that's not just me. That's I'm a small cog in a massive machine. But to just to be a part of it was fantastic. I mean, effects stuff. We do, because special effects these days is a lot of atmospheric effects. I mean, obviously there's other stuff as well, but it's the majority is atmospheric. So, as I said before, your smoke, your wind, your rain, your fire. That is really the sort of stuff that you want as your bread and butter. That is your daily. But even then, you can go into really good stuff. I mean, you could have a massive windstorm, which is just literally you turning on a fan and like aiming it down, then you're getting like a load of smoke coming through, so it really looks like it's like all the elements are kicking off, and really you've just got a smoke machine that's like next to a wind machine blowing it through, and it just looks great. You can properly make it look like there is a hurricane happening, just with a few bits of equipment and a couple of people. And it's always fun when you are involved in something really big. Um, when you will look back, or you're on the outskirts operating like a smoke machine, like a medium or something like that. So it's just going around the outskirts, and you'll look in the set and you're just like, that looks great, you know.
Yeah, and
It,
that's.
uh,
I was just thinking about like when you were talking about the wind and all that stuff. I recently watched The Lighthouse.
mm,
Do you know anything about that one?
I've never heard of it.
Oh, it's basically almost like a play in a way. It's Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe, and it's set in like sometime in like the 1800s, I think. And the there's shots in that where there's they're in storms and stuff, but it's shot in black and white. And I wonder how that would work. Like, I mean, have you ever done anything like that? Like, I mean, that's a stark contrast that you've got to maintain there.
Yeah, I'm not sure how it would really look on black and white. I can't think of anything that I've ever filmed in black and white. Um, but I mean, smoke, for instance, you're always going to see it because it reacts. Smoke itself reacts with light, so it's always going to reflect it off. So you're always going to see it, especially if you backlight something. But if it's black and white, even though the color isn't there, it's still going to be lit. So you're still going to see stuff. So I can't imagine it would be really too much different.
Hmm.
It would probably be different from another aspect, but from effects, uh, other than for instance, a big fire or something like that, you will be able to tell it's a fire, but obviously you won't have the reds, the oranges. If you've got like your accelerant in there, which is producing your really deep color, like like diesel or something like that. So you've got like your black smoke coming in, and
Hmm.
you'd have petrol as your sort of like you wouldn't want to use too much because it will flash out the camera because of how it does,
How it ignites. Yeah.
how it ignites. Yeah, exactly. So whether it looks different from a black and white perspective, I honestly couldn't tell you. I'm just basically waffling.
Yeah, but no, I mean, that's awesome. And it's one of those things where, like, to me, look, I'm no camera guy. I don't know how that stuff, like f-stops and I don't know. It's just not it's not where I've always focused my attention on. My attention was always on like story and theme and whether things flow and all that kind of stuff. That's what I've always been like super interested in. Kind of crafting that story and making it's almost like playing music. It's the same way.
Well,
And so
yeah,
like
and you're using effects and costume and all these other departments
it's another instrument.
as your tools. Yeah, exactly. You are painting a picture, and these are at your disposal to throw in there as you choose.
Yeah.
It's like having your own big box of crayons.
Yeah, and I mean, I got to tell you, the Lighthouse. I'll save you some time. Unless you're really into acting, I can't recommend it.
I like dialogue stuff, but
Mm.
I don't know. I've got to be engaged in the story as well.
Yeah, it's a
So
weird one.
yeah.
It's very strange, but of course I watched it because I'm kind of on a Robert Pattinson kick because
You're
I'm
eagerly
into
awaiting Batman.
yeah, and I want to know more about because I mean all I've seen of him, I've never seen Twilight or anything like that. The only thing I'd seen him in was Harry Potter. So
Oh yeah, for like a few minutes. Spoiler.
right, so yeah, I mean talk about an older movie. But yeah, I mean, I was just interested in him as an actor. It's kind of like like when Heath Ledger was announced as the Joker. It was one of
Yeah,
those things where everybody was kind of like, "Oh man, he's on Brokeback Mountain guy," blah, blah. And then I was thinking,
I was as well. I was as well.
but I was sitting there going, "Have you seen Monsters Ball? This guy can act." I
Yeah.
mean, even in some of in Knight's Tale, there are
Have you seen
moments.
10 Things I Hate About You?
There's so many moments. Yeah, there's so many moments that he's insanely good. So
Oh, it's
I was like,
fantastic.
I think he's gonna bring some cool stuff to this. I was one of the few people that was really excited about him, and I've got proof of it.
But he was great in the film he did after The Dark Knight as well.
Oh yeah.
Because obviously people say, oh, it was his last movie, and it's like it wasn't his last movie.
Right.
They're just using it for sensationalism. But he did obviously the Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, which he
Yes.
didn't finish. But that is a great film, and he's very showman-like in it, which I think is well, it just shows his range. I mean, to go from the Joker to then go to that, and he was a fantastic Joker. I mean, Patterson as Batman, I'm skeptical, but I'm open to it as well. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not going to start going, oh, he shouldn't be. But you know, anybody can be Batman. Affleck, I thought he was a good enough Batman. I mean, we didn't see too much of him.
Yeah. He didn't really get the
Granted,
stretch. Yeah.
I haven't seen Justice League, but I have seen Batman v Superman, and he's not as well established as like I don't know. I guess Bale was a good enough Batman, though I did find the Batman in that particular trilogy a little bit boring. Because for instance, The Dark Knight is my favorite, but I think the film only lights up when the Joker is on screen. Whereas if you go back to the Keaton days, I love it when Batman's on screen because he is my Batman.
Yeah.
So
And I love him as Bruce Wayne was really fun. You know, he was it towed that line between like, and here we're just talking about Batman, but I love Batman. And it's what made me fall in love with Batman was that first movie, man, with Jack Nicholson, and yeah, it was just Kim Basinger,
all
Passenger.
filmed right here in England.
Oh man, I love that movie, and I love how. I mean, he's definitely he kind of comes off as rich, but he's also got that real human, you know, thing that I just really love about Michael Keaton. Like one of my favorite lines in the movie is, and he's like, Kim is it Basinger or Bassinger or Basinger? Or, I don't know how to say it.
I don't know. I'm not even
Vicky
gonna guess.
Vale.
That's the one.
Yeah, she asked him. She's like, do you enjoy being in this room? And he goes, yeah. You know, in fact, I don't think I've ever been in this room before. It's one of my favorite lines, and
it's just one of those throwaway flex lines. It's like, oh, I've got a lot of money.
It's so good. It's just, I love that kind of stuff. And Bale didn't really have a lot of that. He didn't get the opportunity to, and he never came off as, and maybe this is Nolan, you know, saying I want it to be more serious, you know, but he didn't really joke around that much. And it's not that I need Batman to joke around, but it was still like, I don't know.
He didn't joke around, but he did fake being drunk on a couple of occasions so he could basically be a dick to people to get them out of his house. But it's to save them because he knows something's coming or stuff like that. So that there's always a point to it. And I just think that's good storytelling, really.
Oh yeah.
I don't think he was the best Bruce Wayne by a long shot. I mean, beats Kilmer or Clooney, but his Batman, I think, is what people will remember it for. If it's not just for the toys, it was the gravelly voice. I mean, no one had done that at that point.
Yeah.
Well, it was a new twist on it. It was like, of course, you're not going to talk exactly the same as you do when you're Michael Keaton. Which, I mean, his voice didn't change too much when he was Batman. It kind of did, but you could still sort of tell.
It was just lower.
Whereas Bale sounds like he's like gargling marbles or something like that. You really can't tell. It's almost borderline Bane.
Now, see, that's one of the things that kind of irritated me about the movies is that the first movie it's almost like it's implied that maybe there's some sort of weird modulation going on with his voice.
Bane?
No.
Oh, right.
Batman and Bruce Wayne or whatever. That he built some of it in there to disguise his voice. There's one scene where it sounds like he's talking normally, but it sounds like there's some artificial modulation going on. And for me,
like a distortion mic or something like that. Yeah. So.
Right. And I was thinking, man, that's a really cool idea to have it built in, so you don't even have to think about it. You don't have to. You don't have to sit there and. I'm really upset. You know, it's like you don't have to worry about that. Your
Well, yeah,
performance can just be the performance.
yeah. I imagine it would be quite distracting to have to put that voice on and then start coughing or stuff like
Yes. Yeah.
that.
But I don't know. I love
I
those
wasn't
movies.
on Batman, so I'm not sure how that would have been done. But yeah, it'd be interesting to look into. That's for sure. It's
Yeah.
always fun to find out these little things.
Yeah, see that's the kind of stuff I dig into. I love that kind of stuff. But yeah. So kind of shifting gears a bit, kind of mixing in with what my brother said. Like when you're finished, are you allowed and you watch it? Like say, and I know Game of Thrones is one of a different kind of story, but like any movie or anything like that, do you get enjoyment through from watching it, or are you, or do you, like me? I know that when I'm watching, I'll just say clips from the movie, I'm constantly looking at. I'm trying to feel the story, but I'm also going, I remember that day. I remember this and I remember that. Is it hard to do that, to separate yourself from it and just enjoy it?
Uh, it can be. Um, but basically, when you're working on a film or a show or stuff like that, it's hard to avoid the story. I mean, you're obviously there. You're doing your job. Everybody else is doing their job, but everybody has to be quiet when filming is happening, and you will just end up just watching bits and pieces, and you could potentially spoil something for yourself. I hadn't I'd watched a bit of Thrones before I did season 4, but as I knew I was going out there, I was like, oh, okay, I'll watch the rest. So I watched the rest, but obviously going out there and then doing all our bits and pieces and stuff like that. Spoiler talk coming up for season 4. Not that anybody. This is like years ago,
Yeah.
but just in case. But the bit with Bran and I, I can't remember his name. The kid that was in Prince Caspian, the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe film. Well, not the
I
Lion,
think
the
I
Witch,
know who you're talking
the
about.
Narnia film.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was. It's him, his sister, and Bran all going up to the north of the wall, isn't
Mm.
it? So they can meet the three-eyed raven, and he dies on the way up. But when we were filming that, I didn't know. And it wasn't until talking with him afterwards, he's like, "Yeah, it's my last day today." I was like, "Oh, really? Is it?" It's like, "Yeah, what we just did." And I was like, "Oh no!" So I'd kind of sort of avoided it because I didn't really pay attention. I was just focused on what I was doing as opposed to what was happening. But then I did end up spoiling it for myself by actually speaking to the guy about it, and it's like, oh god. So yeah, you can always like you will find it hard to avoid spoilers, but when you're watching something on the big screen, I don't really go to the cast and crew showings anymore.
Yeah, you had said
Um,
that. Yeah.
yeah, but I remember my very first one was Dark Shadows, the very first cast and crew I went to, and it is like people in there just like, oh yeah, I was doing this, and I was behind that tree right there, and it's like, oh yeah, when you were behind that tree, I was hidden underneath this I don't know, this branch. It's like brilliant. It's like we're in here watching a film, and it's like everybody is just talking about it. Obviously, you're nostalgic for what you're doing, and you're meeting up with people you probably haven't seen for a while, because the screening probably wouldn't be till, I don't know, 6 months after you'd finished shooting, or maybe a year, or anything like that. So
Right.
yeah, it's cool to reminisce and stuff like that. But I'm one of these people that when I go into a cinema, I want to watch the film. I don't want people to talk. I mean, I might think it in my head, and I have been guilty of it before when I've been in a film with somebody. Obviously, just with the person that I'm with or stuff like that, I'll just sort of lean over and go, "That smoke looks rubbish," or just something along those things, or if it is something I've done, I'll be like, "Yeah, that's coming up now," or where. Like for instance, I told you I did The Conjuring 2, and obviously being next to a lady friend at the time. It's just like you know something's coming just because of you remember how the particular scene went or stuff like that. So you just be waiting for it to just grab her knee or something. Just stuff like that. It's kind of like just if you'd watched the film before,
Right.
except you're watching it in the cinema and doing it. So it's kind of just me being a douche.
Well, I just know that like for me, I don't know, like I guess it just depends on the movie. Sometimes like um I want to talk about something while something's going on, but I won't say anything until after the movie. But then I probably won't remember. But like
You might forget.
with since this is the first one I'm working on and I'm seeing some scenes kind of as themselves,
Mm.
I feel like I'm gonna be able to sit there and just, I like how that flows into it, but I won't be talking about it. I will be taking it in. It's kind of like, of course, I was the script supervisor, so it's different. Like my job was to make the story, make every scene. At least my thinking was that each scene has to be like, even if they go off script, as long as the scene's integrity stays intact, then I don't care. They can go
Yeah.
off and talk about all kinds of stuff as long as it makes sense with what the point of the scene is. So, like for me, I think watching the movie back, I'm gonna be like just watching it and just enjoying it and trying to enjoy it as like a fan, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Well, yeah. I will watch it the same way, purely because I'm interested to see how it all comes together.
yeah,
Obviously having read the script, and been there while we were filming throughout the whole thing, etc. It was, it's something which I wouldn't have come over and worked on if I wasn't interested in it. That's
right.
that's the sort of thing, and interested in what the possibilities could be afterwards. That sort of thing, which I think Billy's already touched on. So when it finally does come out, I'm going to be happy to watch it. However, if I do make it out to the States to be there for the premiere, fingers crossed. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be like, oh, you remember when I was behind that thing? Putting the smoke in. I mean, it could be. I'm just being reminded of the. I'm just trying to think that it's definitely been in the trailer. The carnival scene.
Mm-hmm.
It's briefly in the it's in the trailer. It's been spoken about. That's fine. But yeah, when I'm in there, and I don't know if you remember when Billy was like, more smoke. I need more smoke, and I was just there thinking, Jesus, it's like this is like, because obviously I can't see what it's looking like. So I mean, as long as he was happy and Peter was happy, that's the important thing.
Right.
But obviously I'm back there, and I'm just pumping in as much as I can, and I don't think I even really saw the rushes or the playback rather to see how it looked because I was a bit rushed off my feet that night. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it turns out. Definitely.
I'm curious as to how that whole sequence will work. Because there was a lot of. Gosh, I don't know how much I can say.
I'm sure Billy would have loved to get some aerial shots. I think that could have been
Mm,
nice. Obviously, that comes down to budget and stuff like that.
sure.
But I don't know. I was almost getting a Lost Boys sort of vibe. If you remember,
Yeah.
it's like sort of like really not quite sure. Like it's sort of rundown carnival sort of thing. Which is almost borderline House of a Thousand Corpses sort of thing as well.
Right.
Sort of thing. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just like I said. I'm curious as to there's certain things that I remember the night we shot it. I remember the night we shot this. These are gonna go like this. How is it gonna flow together? How does it feel? Does it? And I know. I see. That's the thing. I got to tell you, the humor works. The humor
Yeah.
it works. So
I'm so jealous.
really, yeah. The one scene, and maybe after the show, I'll tell you about what I've seen. But
Tell
there's
me.
there's a scene that I can't say anything about it. But I'm just going to tell you,
no, we don't want to get told off by Billy.
Yes. I mean,
Yeah.
it works so well, and it's like
I think I know what you're talking about, because it's got to be the part that I am really looking forward to. We'll talk about it after.
We'll talk about it.
without being dicks to people in the chat by not explaining what we're talking about.
I know that's got to be frustrating, and I apologize. We're not doing this intentionally.
Dude, try doing it for a year.
Yeah.
Obviously, when season 8 of Thrones was filmed, it didn't come out for a year and a half, and it got people going, "Oh yeah, Game of Thrones. I wonder who's going to win." I'm just like, oh, I can't tell you.
Now, here's a question that's kind of related to this. Did you? And I don't know if this has happened. I have no idea. Movie's done. It's released. Comes out on Blu-ray. Do you buy it? Have you ever done that?
Yeah, I bought Dark Shadows. So first proper big film.
Mm-hmm.
Because Captain America, I was like location, so it doesn't really count.
Did you watch it like once a week, twice a week?
I've seen the film twice.
I
think I just bought it. Whereas Justice League, I haven't seen it, but I did get Zack Snyder to sign a copy of Batman v Superman. So it was Watchmen. Sorry, a copy of Watchmen, so I could give it to my brother, because he's a fan of Watchmen and some of Snyder's stuff. So yeah. But actually, sort of watching the things.
No.
See, yes and no.
I guess for me, and I'm just trying to put myself in your shoes. I know that there's got to be movies that you've worked on that, as a fan, I'd probably watch over and over, like just and not for like, oh, that's what I did. I would forget it, and I guess it's just because of the way my mind works. I'm all about story and character and all that kind of stuff. So I think I'd probably be like, yeah, like I guarantee you this Game of Thrones, the Game Chasers movie, I'm probably going to end up seeing it. Oh my gosh, I'm probably going to be tired of the movie by the time it actually comes out. Cause I think there's going to be a point where I might be a guinea pig. Like Billy might say, hey, does this scene work for you? And I can try to go in there and be somewhat critical. But
well, I mean, you're the script supervisor, so I mean, if you're at Billy's disposal still now, you kind of still have valid input. You are still there to make sure that it is coherent, because obviously Billy is the director, but he's also editing it.
Yeah.
So having a fresh pair of eyes on it could work from another perspective. So you may see something that he's missed, or you may just say, no, that looks perfect. That works perfectly.
Yeah.
I'm sure it'd be good for him to have. I'm sure he's going to have some people like test screen for him
for sure.
I'd love to be one of them, Billy.
But well, and that's one of the things too, is like I thought, because now I've got I'm using the audio software to help clean up things.
Yeah.
And
Audio
I
Scrub,
thought,
isn't it?
Do what now?
Audio Scrub or something. I've heard one of them's called or something.
Yeah, mine is the one that I got was RX Advanced.
Just because I know that I've worked on many shows where I've had obnoxious boom guys be like, "Oh, can you turn off that smoke machine?" or stuff like that, which is actually dangerous to turn off the smoke machine because it cools down, and then you've got like you've got to heat it back up again, though they want it instant, so it could ignite because obviously you've lost your smoke point and stuff like that. So without getting into that, it's the way I see it is they're just doing this so they don't have to do as much like messing around with the audio afterwards.
Well, and here's what's funny. I think it depends on because like I gotta tell you, the audio cleanup stuff, the generator, stuff like that, man, I'm enjoying the cleanup. I'm enjoying the before and after and go, holy crap, that sounds completely different. That's awesome. Like, for example, not giving anything away, but there's a scene with yeah, and you remember this night. Remember there was a lot of traffic. That night we had
at the house.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we were out back. And remember the traffic noises were so bad. You remember that night?
I do, but I was more focused on trying to set my levels, that sort of thing.
Oh yeah, and I've got pictures. I've got pictures of you doing your thing, and I've got pictures. Well, you've probably seen them. They've been on the show.
I've seen a couple. Yeah.
But there's the sound was dreadful. The not brake noises, but almost like whines of wheels turning. All that kind of stuff is all over this track. And I cleaned it up. I'm not going to say it's perfect, but I think it's definitely usable. And it was insanely fun to try to go, okay, there's a spot where they're not talking right here. Let me sample this part. And then and what the software does is it learns that pattern, and then you drag the whole file, and then it tries to remove that pattern from the... It's so cool, man. It's so fun. And it's like, I never knew... Like, I'm a big sound guy.
Don't give that audio program access to your bank details.
Yeah.
that sounds like some Skynet stuff right there.
Man. There's one part, and this is not anything important, but it was outside. It was out at the camp, right? The camp, whatever you call that. Anyway.
Lake.
Yeah. Yeah. But I went in and I removed a bird sound.
Oh, right. Okay.
But without destroying the audio. Like, there was somebody speaking at the time, and I removed the bird sound without affecting the vocals. It's insane.
That's quite clever. So what, it puts it into almost like layers or stuff like that?
It puts
layers
it into
of sound, or
it puts it into a spectrograph, which is never something I've never worked with before. But it's it's like you've got basically your timeline, but then it's based on like frequency.
Right.
And so it's a spectrograph. And what I did was I went in and found the bird and just removed the bird from the spectrograph, but without messing with the actual dialogue. It's insane, man. It's so cool.
That sounds like clever stuff.
And what's actually really scary is one of the things that I was messing with, and just to learn, I was changing somebody's voice. But it's their inflection and everything, but I'm changing the harmonics, because it shows you, like, when you look at like somebody just saying a word. So, yes.
Yeah.
The spectrograph, there's the different harmonics that your vocal cords produce, and it goes up. It almost looks like a rib cage. It's weird looking.
Okay.
And I could go in there and change the frequencies of specific harmonics, and it changes your voice. And
so you could make Eric sound like he has a really high-pitched voice through the whole film.
Yes.
Do it.
And what's even... And this is something, again, this is probably no one's interested in this, except unless you're a sound guy. There's a part of the like, say... like, let's say... you might remember this, actually. There was an actor on set that every time he said a specific phrase... We said it a lot over the course of the shoot. I may have to talk to you about that afterward, but anyway, he said things a certain way.
All I remember is the continuous film quote from a certain Jim Carrey movie.
Now, see, now I can't remember that.
Really? Jay was doing it all
yeah.
Really?
Yeah. But no, I'll just give you an example. So let's say I'm asking a question and I go, so what do you think of that? And the director says, is there any way to get that to go up? So what do you think of that? I can do that. I can change
you're giving more emotion to a voice.
I can change the inflection.
Wow. So you're actually messing with an actor's performance.
Yes.
Oh.
But
I didn't realize people could do that. No,
And what's interesting, and the more I was messing with it, the more I was thinking, I wonder how much this has been used. Like, has this been? I would think that there's, and what's weird is you can't tell because it's still the actor's voice.
Yeah.
So the actor might watch it back and go, yeah,
I did that really well.
Yeah,
I came
but he
across
would have
perfectly.
no idea that I could go in there and actually change the performance. But it's still their voice. They're still saying the words the same way. But you can make it go up or go down. It's so cool. And it's kind of scary, like I said. It's almost like you see the what are they called? Deep fakes?
Yeah, where they put like someone's face on and well, it's basically it's them, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like you've got like that Nick Cage one. And so I can't remember what movie they put him in, but it's just like that they completely replace the actor, don't they? So
yeah, they just recently did one. I saw one this morning. Chris Pratt over Temple of Doom. So he's playing Harrison Ford in Temple of Doom.
See, I think he would be a perfect Indy. That'd be perfect. I know Chris Pratt is everybody's action hero for every single film franchise on the planet at the moment, but he would be a great Indy. He would.
I think so too. But like, it's like there's that machine learning thing. Like way back, this was before Roger Ebert died. What they did is they took, because he had done thousands of hours of programs, right? He did this little review thing with Siskel and Ebert, the Siskel and Ebert show, but then he did a bunch of commentaries for movies. So he did like Citizen Kane, he did all these movies, and what they do is that the computer takes all the phonemes and then it can build a voice based on the way that he said that specific phenome. So the way you say they can, and then
so it's, would that be delving into the area like how you have I don't know how the technology has advanced, but like the holograms that came out for a while, where it was like dead pop stars or rappers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Would it be that sort of technology, the same sort of thing that they would do to base that?
I don't. That's actually really interesting. I don't know. But like what they did is, like Ebert, he lost his bottom jaw because of, I guess it was cancer. Or, can't remember what it was, but he lost the bottom part of his jaw, so he couldn't speak anymore.
Oh wow!
But the computer software was able to do it where he could, text to speech. He could type things out, hit play, and it would be his voice speaking those phonemes in a row, and it made it sound. There were some that sounded completely off, but like the computer knew. It's like, okay, so I need to build the word thought. So he said ought over here. He said the over here. He takes the th at the beginning of that audio file and then the ought, and it made thought. And it's like, wow. And so I'm wondering if you could do that kind of thing with certain actors. One of my favorite is a guy that I used to work with, who you haven't met. Most people watching this show probably haven't even met this guy. But we talked movies a lot. And he said, wouldn't it be cool if they could say, let's do a new Western with Clint Eastwood from the good, the bad, and the ugly days. A digital, basically.
I'd hate that. I'd hate it.
You'd hate it?
No, I don't agree with that. No. I would hate that technological advancement.
Wow.
I just would. I wouldn't agree with it. No, because it's not the actor. It's you can't mimic the performance. Yes, you can change the performance, as you said.
Yeah.
But you can't bring what that actor would have brought to it.
The gravitas that they have.
You've just got ideas. You're like, well, this is probably how he would do it, but you don't know whether he's had a bad morning, or whether he's got things going on in his family life, which he then puts into his performance, or she puts into her performance. Anything that an actor can like use to bring to big up their performance.
Now,
whereas if it's a computer program, I don't know.
So you weren't a fan of. Oh, go ahead. Huh? Sorry.
No. I was just going to go. It's like you then have to rely on past data, and if it then does learn is that really how it would play out? Because that's the computer program learning, but it may not be the same timeline that this particular actor would learn in. You know,
Right.
whether he would go that way. How could you predict that? That's not possible.
Well, so does that mean that like Rogue One with Tarkin,
I've
you?
only seen it once and I barely watched it, so.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just curious because in that, it's got that same kind of Peter Cushing had a
Oh, Cushing, yeah. No, I know who you're talking about now. Yeah,
yeah, he has a way that he speaks that I think they did a pretty amazing job with, but I mean, I totally get what you're saying. It's like
yeah.
it's like that uncanny valley kind of thing where it's almost good, but it's not, and it's just
Well, I thought the same thing with the Mandalorian, uh, with Werner Herzog,
mm,
because I didn't realize that he was still alive.
mm,
So I was like, oh wow, they've done that really well. It's like that sounded just like that guy. So I remember that. And yeah, and I was like, oh, the guy, it was actually him.
yeah,
I had no idea. I was like, wow, that because that guy's been around forever.
I
He's a
know.
legend, isn't he? So
Well, I don't know. I think that it's one of those situations, like the whole just because you can doesn't mean you should.
yeah,
Um, I used to say that I don't know if I would like that, but then it's the idea of being able to write a new Indiana Jones, you know, set in 1935, so you could still
yeah.
have young Harrison Ford, kind of. But then, I mean, he's got a run pattern that you'd have to emulate. He's
I
got a,
I hmm,
you know what I
I
mean?
think no, I know what you mean. I just think that they had their chance with Crystal Skull, and they stumbled and fell flat on their face. Um, through various things. I mean, I think the main culprit was the story,
Yeah,
because it's like stick with the Germans, or the Germans worked twice. It was great, and then you've got well, it's sort of the Chinese and then going to India, isn't it? So but I just didn't think the Russian angle really worked. And then going into aliens and that sort of thing, it could have worked. I mean, the story's there. It's not a terrible story. It's just I think it was badly told,
yeah,
and fleshed out in wrong things. And I thought that it was like a kick in the nuts to have the hat go to Shia LaBeouf at the end, because after watching the film and just be like, oh, like that is like, there's no way he's going to be the new Indy. It was almost like he's spitting bile at the screen. It's like, no, you can't do that.
yeah. But see,
Whereas
he picked it up.
if
He picked it
yeah, he
up and
picks
then
it
he
up.
took
Yeah,
it back. I loved
yeah,
it. I love the
yeah,
way they did that. See,
yeah,
and I think that's the most. I guess so. The frustrating thing about movies like these big sequels, especially when they're like 30 years later or 20 years later,
sure.
is that you've got so much baggage from the previous movies that it's hard to do anything new, because if you go too far off the path, then the fans of the originals are upset. But then if you stick too close, then all the people say, "Oh, well, it's just a, like, for example, The Force
So,
Awakens is a great example
right.
where it's almost like they remade
yeah,
the first movie."
yeah. So you're going into talking more reboots or sequels,
Yeah.
sort of.
Well,
I understandable. I mean, I get it, but you were sort of almost touching on that there's no new material these days, because new IPs, it it seems like we are in a sort of a generation of the reboot or the sequel at the moment, where that there is a lot of stuff being churned out where some of it's good, and some of it not so good. It's like I think there was a sequel to The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, not
yeah.
which was a reboot or remake of the other thing from the 50s. But I'm a Carpenter fan. I was a big fan of the Carpenter one.
Oh
Not
yeah.
not saying I don't appreciate obviously what it was based on, but yeah. But then you've got The Thing 2, which then all of a sudden became a soft reboot, and it was pretty much exactly the same film, just with some quite bad CG. And it was
Yeah.
like it didn't need to be done. Whereas if they rebooted Indy, as I said, with a good story, or with Indiana Jones, with Chris Pratt as Indy or stuff like that, I'd be on board. I mean, I love that sort of era and that sort of genre. Obviously, you've got well, the sort of stuff around then. I can't even think, but you know, Indiana Jones would be a perfect one to do, just as a reboot.
See, that's
National Treasure. That's what I was going to say.
oh yeah,
That was
yeah,
something along the same sort of lines. Like,
yeah.
obviously, they're meant to be doing the third one, and they've talked about it for so many years.
I'm excited.
I love National Treasure. I think it's amazing. It's not even my history. It's your guys' history. Apart from obviously when you bring in the redcoats, and it's like, oh, that just reminds me of Jay on set.
Yeah, I'm all for any of those. I think that it's one of those things where, man, it would be tough for me to ever want to try to tackle writing something like that, because it's got to be, there's so many things to think about. Like I said, it's like you want to be loyal to the fans, but you also want to bring something new to it. But if you go too far, then they go, well, this isn't even Indiana Jones anymore. And then if you say, you know what I mean? It's like it's almost you can't win in a way.
Have you seen Terminator Dark Fate?
I have.
Did you like it?
Actually, yes, I did.
Same.
And
I really enjoyed.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. What did you say?
You right?
Yeah, you froze for just a second.
All right. I really enjoyed it. I was a big fan of Dark Fate, apart from when they just so badly shoehorned in that little bit of dialogue that you always know is coming, where Linda Hamilton just says, "I'll be back," and it's like, oh, can't we just go one Terminator film without reusing that classic dialogue? It's like it didn't need it. There was no need for it. If they hadn't said it, I'd have been happy, you know. But other than that, I thought it was a good sequel. However, the weird thing is that to actually talk about effects for the first time, probably in about 10 minutes, is
sorry,
is the no, it's fine. But the effects, which actually probably is more borderline visual effects than it is physical effects, how they come back, you know, in the sort of like electricity cryo ball sort of thing where they come back in time. I still think other than the electricity, I still think it looked better back in Terminator 2.
it is kind of nuts.
Yeah, I mean, I loved the sequence where the is it the guy, I don't know what model Terminator he is or whatever like that, but when the guy comes back in the apartment complex and all the clothes, they freeze and they start smashing on the floor, I thought that was perfect. That was a great touch, and that probably would have been done for real as well, which was quite exciting to look at and just be like, I wonder how they did that. I'm interested to see how they did that, because I don't think it's a visual effect. It could be. I mean, I'd love to be proved wrong, but I'd like to think it was physical, and I would like to have known how it was done. So yeah, lots of niggly things like that when I watch films. You know, sometimes when I see something that interests me, like,
Yeah.
these days you do have to wonder. It's like, is that real? You know, and it does get you wondering. It's like, how would I do that? And it's like that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's a movie where I'm so kind of disappointed that it didn't do well, because
I was surprised. Surprised it didn't. Yeah.
Well, it's the 2 movies before it that people were just like, I'm tired of Terminator now.
People have been burned. Well, the thing that annoyed me about Genesis, because I didn't think Genesis was, I mean, it wasn't great, but it wasn't awful. But in the trailer, that they showed that John Connor was already that he was already the Terminator. and it was just like, well, that's completely ruined the film. It's like to give away the main sort of like aha moment in your trailer is just that killed the film for me. I think I actually put off watching it for a long time because I was just like, well, I know he's the Terminator, so what's the point?
Yeah, I remember liking it on a very surface level. Like
Mm.
if you just forgot the previous movies and you just watched it, it was competently done. And
Yeah,
it was kind of it was that was the one with Emilia Clarke in it, right?
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
I remember when it was over I was like, well, that wasn't terrible.
yeah. It's okay, but I mean that's the same with Dark Fate. I mean,
Yeah.
I had a higher praise for it than I did for Genesis, but I was still watching it like, you know what? I've seen it again since. I only watched it a while ago, but then I watched it again the other day. I was like, you know what? This is all right. I mean, as a direct sequel to two, obviously it can't hold a candle to two, but it's still good. And the story, whilst they keep churning out the same story over and over and over, this is John Connor, this is his story, that sort of thing. This went in a different direction.
Yeah.
Where obviously it was accomplished. That they did prevent Judgment Day, and then you don't know what the future is. Everything that Linda Hamilton thought she knew, she doesn't know past 1997. So it's interesting that she goes that far. I think it's a little bit far fetched to look into the T800. Is it the T800 or the T600 that Arnie is? T800,
800.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, where he starts to develop a conscience and stuff like that after like 40 years. It's like, really? But
I don't know. Machine learning. That's what. If you listen to Elon Musk, he thinks that. I mean, we're gonna have that, which is a little scary.
yeah, yeah, but this is borderline robot storyteller, where you're just saying that, okay, so the T800s, they're going to be the physical embodiment of Gizmo, and the T1000 is going to be the physical embodiment of the Gremlins. And it's like they're just going to want chaos. They're just going to want to do. They're just going to want to destroy. Whereas your T800 Gizmo is just going to be like, oh, let's all live nice. I'm not going to do. I'm not going to kill people. Yeah, it's weird when you start thinking about it. But then again, it is a movie about time traveling robots, so I probably shouldn't be delving into it that much.
It's one of those. I mean, it's kind of like, as much as I love Star Wars and I love talking and thinking about Star Wars,
Sure.
Space Wizards. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
yeah,
cowboy movie in space. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Which that's what's interesting about the whole the way that they're doing with the Mandalorian is that it just feels more like we're trying to get down to the pure essence of what Star Wars is.
Yeah.
But let's
it's
see.
more minimalist.
Yeah.
And it works because of it. Because you believe that they're on a planet that nobody's visited for a while because there's barely anybody there. That sort of thing. It doesn't need to have a huge party going on out in the desert that hasn't happened in 97 years or something.
Right.
It's irrelevant. It doesn't need that just to hide like a fan favorite character coming back or something. I don't know. I don't want to diss on Star Wars too much because I know you're a fan, but
Look, as I've said many times, well, I try to kind of allude to the fact every time is that you may love this and I may hate it and vice versa, and it's okay. We're just here talking about fun stuff.
Yeah.
No reason to get all bent out of shape about it. Like if I wanted to get bent out of shape, I would have got bent out of shape on set when everybody started talking bad about Last Jedi, and then I had to put the smack down. But I get it. I totally get it. But
I know, and it's absolutely fine that you're wrong.
Well, that's one of the things. That's something that I might have to do at some point. Is I want to do a YouTube video. I think. and maybe I shouldn't say this because then I'd be beholden to it. I'll do it anyway. I want to tell my story about like all the stuff that I went through, the
Right.
the medical stuff that I went through,
Sure.
and that ties me into. It's a weird thing because to me, I almost think of myself before it and myself after it, like they're not the
Mm.
same person. Like in a way, is it Anakin and Darth Vader? No, it just feels different now, and
Yeah.
I think the me before would have thought differently about the Last Jedi than I do now. And it's weird, but hopefully I can explain it in a way that makes sense and that doesn't bore the pants off people.
Hmm.
But anyway,
Well, you've just like had a bit of an intriguing like interlude into it, so you've garnered my interest, good sir.
well, okay, well, yeah, well, hopefully, hopefully I can. Again, my problem is, I think my biggest issue is I tend to over talk, I overthink things, so I over explain things, and sometimes it's better to just say this is it and just let it sit for itself. But
Well, that's why you have the edit button, as opposed to when we're live and we're just
right.
we'll just talk.
But see, it's the weird thing though is that that's why I enjoy the live thing is because I
Yeah.
enjoy the organic nature. Because if you tried to like right now, I can't remember how we got down this path, but I
We've
enjoy
we've
that.
we've gone off on many tangents.
But it's fun. That's what I love
Yeah.
about
Oh,
it. It's
oh no,
fun.
I'm not saying it isn't. No, not at all. I'm more than happy.
Well, okay,
Um.
so here's this is I think I mean, we're coming up on an hour and 45 minutes here. I don't know what you've got going, but I've got some things I've got to work on the movie a little bit today.
Mm.
So yeah. Um, but my question is like for upcoming movies, do you like are you a genre kind of guy? Like oh I like, comic book movies or I like fantasy movies or I what kind of movies do you look forward to? I should say.
Ah, I like I like stuff that looks interesting. I mean that could be said about anything. But you know what I mean?
I
It's
need to
like
put in the
if
video.
something,
I was
yeah,
going to say in the
if something like garners my interest, it could be something where it's a hook, so something that will get me. I watched a show very very recently on Netflix, and it won't spoil it by me saying it because you kind of find out the whole sort of thing in the first episode or so because it's only a limited series,
Hmm.
but it's called Into the Night, and it's basically this guy going crazy. Well, not going crazy, but he's very agitated. He kind of looks very very official in almost like a sort of army uniform sort of thing, and he's in an airport. Like he runs out of a bar. He's in an airport, um, and then he ends up stealing somebody's gun and taking an airplane hostage and forcing them to take off. And they take off, and I think they're supposed to be going to Russia, but they're like, well, where do you want to go? He's like, west. It's like, well, where? It's like west, and they go west, and there's he's explaining to obviously the pilot and stuff like that the sun is killing people, and it's a crazy sort of story, and it's a plane where for convenience the Wi-Fi isn't working and that sort of thing, so nobody can sort of check. But it's only again, this is the first episode that they sort of try to double back to the airport that they actually left from, and you just see it's carnage. It's at night because
Hmm.
obviously they're going like that, and and then people start like sort of bickering between each other and stuff like that. It's like, is this real? It's like, what's going on? It's like, oh, my family lived there, that sort of thing. It's like, and you just see these people just on the floor, and there's a point where obviously they're trying to outrun the sun,
Hmm.
and a plane won't last forever with fuel, so it becomes quite gripping, and it does it does a very interesting. Well, I'd say interesting. It's becoming a little bit old, but it will always have a cliffhanger on the end of each episode. Like your old Dynasty sort of things or stuff like
I
that.
just
It's
added it
like,
to my list.
yeah, no worries.
I
Yeah,
want to. I
instantly
want to
mine.
watch it.
Well, it is very good, and it's not much to look at. I mean, it looks fine, but there's nothing really special about it. It is very story driven, and you are very interested in what happens. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think I binged the whole season in like 2 days. Um, and then it came out on the same day, a show called Hollywood, which is brilliant.
Yeah, you
You,
told me
you,
about that one. I've got that one on my list too.
Yeah, Hollywood is great. I mean, you've seen Hail Caesar, haven't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's very very along that sort of line. Like way of story time back in the sort of 50s sort of time. But that's a very interesting story as well. I just love that sort of era. That's why video games. I'll put LA Noire up there as one of my favorite video games,
Yeah.
and then LA Confidential as another of my favorite films. So it's all that
So
sort of
you.
old timey sort of Hollywood.
So did you
It's,
see?
it's
What was it? Hollywoodland, right? It was the where Ben Affleck played uh, George Reeve. Is it Reeves? George Reeves, the original Superman. Did you ever see that movie?
Yeah, I'm not sure I've seen that. I might have to watch that. I might have to write that down.
Yeah, because
Oh,
that's in that same period that I really love that period as well, and
right, I'll
that's
give that a watch. Yeah.
and I suggest Hail Caesar to. I mean, if you're to me, it's almost like if you're a fan of the industry, like movies,
Yeah.
then you'll just not just a movie here and a movie there, but if you love the making of movies and you love the history of movies, it's one of those it's fantastic. It's so
Well,
good.
it's so tongue in cheek as well, and
Oh,
and I mean,
yes.
I remember going to watch that with somebody who isn't in the industry, and then coming out and she was just like, it's like, but the industry is like that, there will be a scene going on, and you'll see the crew just round like that because it's maybe the fifth or sixth take, and they're just like, okay, and then the actor messes up his lines again, and you can't say anything, but you're just like, okay, reset, and it's like, okay, so we're just doing that
Would
again,
that it were so
that's a
simple.
yeah, it's just like, but it was just perfect to just only the Coens could like come back and just be like, yeah, rather than this is the shot, it's this is the shot and this is the crew, which is still obviously the shot, but it's just like it's bringing you into that world.
Now, did you I might be, you might have to remind me. I don't know if you've seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood yet.
Yeah,
You didn't like it?
no,
Hmm.
no, I had a bit of a Twitter chat with Jim about this.
Oh
Um,
no, I did see that. I did see that.
yeah,
Yeah. So you just weren't a fan. You because that's one of the things that I liked about it was the idea that you feel like you're in the movie,
yeah,
and then Leo messes up and he's like, "Cut, damn it, whatever."
yeah.
And I
See
love the
that
way
I
that they
didn't
did
mind.
that.
Yeah. Yeah, see that was great. There were great moments in the film. I just found it so odd to base a film as close to factual as they could for that time, to then do a Hollywood ending as such. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, this might be what have happened because everybody knows what happened.
Yeah.
I mean, it's and then the killers went off and they did something else. I think I don't know where they went after that, but I mean that they did murder somebody else that night. I think it was that night. But
Yeah, they murdered that, or they killed everybody in that house.
well, yeah, it was Sharon Tate, and Polanski wasn't there, and
Right.
obviously he's uh, out of the country for other reasons. But but yeah, they just gave it a Tarantino ending, I guess. Just it's just become his. It's almost his shtick, isn't it? It's just like, yeah, movie, good dialogue, movie, and everybody dies. It's like, okay, everybody dies, brilliant. It's like it's just I'm not sure how many more times he can do it.
No, and I get what you're saying. I mean, I totally can see that. But see, like for
Yeah,
me, it was like
I just
Inglorious
don't think it went
Bastards.
anywhere. The film didn't really go anywhere, is what I'm trying to say. So
Well, it was weird because it almost felt like a hangout movie.
yeah,
Where you're like, okay, narrative, who cares? We're just gonna have fun and build a world, and we're gonna make it feel lived in and real. And I mean,
but
I get
why
it. I
have him
totally
go?
get it though.
Oh, of course, but why big up the fact that you've got the same guy that played Manson in Mindhunter, so he's almost typecast as Charlie Manson, um, and you have him very very briefly coming up to the door and then going away, and then he's not in the rest of the film. That they go to the ranch where apparently the Manson
Mm-hmm.
family were. So again, it's bordering on factual, and they're going there, but Charlie Manson isn't there, and we don't see him again for the whole film. And I know they're not trying to have it a Manson film, but that is the crux of the story. It is the fact that Charlie Manson apparently got these kids to go and murder this woman.
It's to me, it's almost like it's a love letter to that time,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
it's almost it's almost uh it's almost like if you took somebody with that kind of that had lived in that period of time, which apparently he grew up in that area, so it was kind of like entrenched with a lot of his memories. But it's
Mm.
almost like a poem about that time, and almost a wish that this is how it had turned out instead. It's like
Yeah.
Inglorious Bastards is I mean, it's got a very
Yeah, he did it then as well, didn't he? Yeah.
yeah, but it's almost like you said. It's like what you said. It's almost becoming a thing for him. But at the same time, it's like I remember because I went and saw it. I think I went and saw it in the theater. I'm trying to remember. I think I did. Yeah, because I went and saw it by myself. And I'm in a theater with some other people or whatever. And about 30, 45 minutes in, I was like, where is this movie going? Like I was like, I didn't know. And then I was like, I sat for a second and I went, okay, this is Tarantino. This is about feeling. Because I was invested in the story. I loved Leo's character. I loved Brad Pitt's character. So I was invested in what was going on. I just was like, this doesn't feel like a narrative. And I'm like, maybe that's not the point. Maybe I just need to sit back and let the movie just kind of wash over me. And when I did that,
Yeah.
by the end of it, I was like, I love this movie. And I've watched
See,
it twice since then.
yeah.
I love it.
I
I get
I
it
was
though.
okay with him. Yeah, I was okay with Inglorious Bastards.
Yeah.
Because I love Christoph Waltz.
Yes.
I've worked with that man once, and it was an absolute joy every day he was there. He was such a good actor, and so that then Django Unchained also. I think that's I prefer that much more than I did Inglorious Bastards, and even Hateful Eight. I loved it, but I also I don't know. I think that it dragged on a little bit. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I know you're establishing mood for a lot of it, but it is almost 2 hours of mood establishing, and then 45 minutes of chaos.
Right.
And it's yeah, it is a good movie, but it does get a bit weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Tarantino, you can't knock him. He is a genius. So
Yeah, I mean it's one of those things where, sometimes things hit you in the right, and that's why it's one of the things that I love about movies in general, especially when you go to the theater and you sometimes that first experience, you can only see a movie once or you can only see a movie the first time once, right? And be
Yeah.
surprised once, really.
I
So
love that feeling. I love that feeling.
yeah. So when you're in, let's say, I'll give you an example. 12 Monkeys. 12 Monkeys. I was starting to get sick as the movie was playing out, and forevermore, when I think of 12 Monkeys, and I love that movie, whenever I watch that movie, I remember being sick. And it's weird. It tainted that whole experience for me. And so when you go to like The Dark Knight, when I saw that the first time, yeah, The Dark Knight is one of those that, for me, it's that first showing that we saw opening night was electric. And I will always remember that feeling. It was so good, man.
I remember my first time watching Batman. I watched it with maybe 10 other people at the same time. The Dark Knight in the cinema, and there was just this one guy. I mean, he's a friend of mine, but he's just like, yeah, that was crap. And it's like, what are you talking about? It's like, and I don't know if he was just doing it for the for the, I don't know, the conflict, but it was just trying to understand how you could dislike that film just for Heath Ledger's performance alone was just crazy to me. Crazy.
Yeah, like we said before, he got so much flack, everybody, the whole production was just having to deal with this hatred toward Heath Ledger. And then it was like, when the movie came out, it was like, guys, yeah, that might be the best performance in comic book history.
Except he didn't get to see the reaction to it.
It's so sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what an amazing performance. It's just
absolutely.
And the movie itself is like, oh, it's so good. It's so good. I feel like the last 20 minutes or so are kind of on a downward trajectory, almost like an anti-climax in a weird way.
Yeah, I get yeah.
But then it still ends, that last little Gary Oldman speech makes up for it. And it's just, it's so good. But in fact, if I ever do tell my whole story about the my sickness and all that kind of stuff with Last Jedi, The Dark Knight Rises plays into that too.
Oh, okay.
And it's it's quite it's weird. It's like, I almost feel like if people want to know why I think the way I do, you gotta know that story too. Because it's rough, but it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see if I can pull this off. I'm going to work on this and, maybe, I don't know, see what happens.
Yeah, I'll give it a watch.
Oh, yeah. Well, man, gosh, I think we've gotten through all of our questions. We're over 2 hours now on the stream. You got anything else that you want to say to the people out there, or maybe plug something or anything?
No, I'm good. I mean, as I said, really, as I said the last time I was on, got something in the works coming up. We are still discussing it over chat, and we will be doing something soon. So just keep an ear out. I'm sure if you either follow myself or Yoshi, and are interested in what we do, you can see something that we will have upcoming at some point. I'm not going to put a timeline on it because we've been talking about this for a while. So
yeah, but I mean, you kind of gave me a skeleton of it, and it just made me go, yes, I want that.
Yeah,
I would love it. And hopefully, I mean, it's one of those things where, gosh, I mean, you get to a point where if you're into this, the way that movies are made and all that kind of stuff, this is going to be right up your alley. So I'm very excited.
Yeah. So it will be a cool little show, I think. So we'll see how it goes. Well,
all right.
This space.
Right. Well, guys, thank you again for watching. If you've stuck around this long, hopefully you were entertained, and thank you to Leon again for coming on. I mean, again, pleasure. And And if there's anything I can do for you, you just let me know. And Leon, you got anything else? You want to say bye?
Bye.
All right. Bye, guys. Have a good one.